F1, Formula One. I know everybody's talked about the engines and the regulations. There's a lot of mixed opinions on this. In my opinion, I think that this podcast, maybe outside of a lot of other places, is a lot more optimistic and a lot more excited about the racing we're seeing. But there have been continued growing pains with these new engines. 7 cars did not make the checkered flag during the feature race, 4 of which did not start this weekend's feature race. McLaren had a double DNS, reminding you that. Alex Albon did not start, and Gabriel Bortoleto did not start this race. And then during the feature, Lance Stroll retired early due to an engine failure. Fernando Alonso later retired, and then Max Verstappen retired around the midway point. But instead of echoing more doom and gloom and putting my elbows out all pointy about the regulations, I will say I actually like the action that we're getting, and the powers that be in Formula One, they seem to agree. This article put out by the race's John Noble, F1 abandoning the idea to make the rule changes after the Chinese Grand Prix, after a stronger racing weekend in China following that rough start in Australia we talked about. F1's taking a little bit more of a cautious approach to regulation changes. John Noble highlighted that during this race, due to better racing in general, the entertainment value we've gotten from the first 2 races, the teams aren't in any rush to make hasty changes. Any lauded 60-40 power splits or a revert of the engines altogether, I think is going to be way more optimistic for fans who don't love the 50-50 split we're getting. But considering the margins at the front of the field aren't so, abyssal, right? I wouldn't be shocked if any tweaks are more on the minor procedural side than anything else. I will ask this before I jump in and just continue to monologue. Kevin, your impressions so far of these regulations and the story that I was just sharing, your impressions of the potential direction of them not making major changes. I want to hear your thoughts before I continue to monologue.
Thank you. I appreciate you for asking for my thoughts. 1, don't know yet. Too soon. 2, drivers are going to complain when their team sucks. And 3, the drivers are going to be happy when their team's good. And that's exactly what is reflected in all the things that we're seeing. Max is complaining about the cars because his car sucks. He can't get it across the damn finish line. Also, Max is a complainer of all complainers when things aren't going his way. We've seen this in the past. When I'm winning, everything's great. When I'm losing, we need to change the sport. I hate the sport. I'm going to leave. Obviously, it would be natural for McLaren and their drivers to be complaining about these new regulations. I know that McLaren is kind of a complainer in and of themselves. I know they do find themselves complaining about certain things that they can't get right. But yeah, of course Lewis Hamilton loves these new regulations. Hey, I'm 40 years old. I'm still competing for podiums. And I'm in Ferrari. Life's great for me, dude. I'm dating Kim Kardashian. Like, I think all things aside, I think that, yeah, the ones that are doing good, like, it would be weird if George Russell was like, actually, I think these new regulations suck.
I'm winning, and I still hate the car. Like, no,
I hate winning. Me and Kim were just talking about, like, this car really blows, man. Like, I think that much is kind of obvious. I don't think we're not breaking any news. So, like, good drivers love their cars. No, not good drivers. That's not what I meant to say. Good results from these drivers are loving their cars. Bad results are making these drivers hate their cars. I think, but I fall back on my first point. It is way too early, guys. We are in the 2nd race of the season. This is like trying to tell me that a Major League Baseball team is going to win the World Series, and it's been 1 week. Guys, we got 162 of these things. We got a while. We've got 80 games in basketball to figure this thing out. We got 17 weeks in football. We've got a lot of races to go. We still have
20 Grand Prix ahead of us. Yeah,
exactly. And a ton of upgrades to follow that. That's what I'm saying. This field is not set in place. We don't know who's going to be competing with Mercedes, and if anyone is going to be able to compete with Mercedes. Tons of things to figure out.
And look, like, F1's getting action that a lot of the fans at least seem to be enjoying. Like, we're part of that group. I've spoken to veteran Formula One fans on both sides of this argument who either hate it or also like it. Like, this face, like, hey, like, this is fun. It's fun watching the wheel-to-wheel battling between the Ferraris, being one example. Or, like, even the Mercedes advantage, they aren't running away, at least for the first couple of race weekends, the way that, like, Red Bull did in 2023. At least not so far.
Right.
Look, a 25-second gap is 25 seconds, but I want to remind fans that even that Red Bull advantage just a few years ago did not hold perpetually. They went from winning the first two constructors to losing out to a McLaren team that succeeded in its development massively. Went on to claim the 2024 constructors. Then they won both of the damn titles in 2025. So just because one team is ahead for now does not mean they will just stay there. Think about the aero, regulations as well. Like the higher up you go, the less aero time you get to develop, and then it goes back down. The worse you do. This might be McLaren. This might be Mercedes' year in 2026, but it doesn't mean they are de facto winning every weekend or every single year. But kudos to them for building the best car. I mean, they built a damn rocket. We talked about that. Maybe I can drop a little link in here. We talked about that last week. But the racing in the early stages is competitive, and it's entertaining, and it's back and forth battling, and is even one over the likes of, like you just mentioned, Khaki Kev, Lewis freaking Hamilton, who said this weekend was some of the most fun he's had in the sport. And Verstappen's still very loudly critical of these regulations, but like you also just mentioned, let's be real, dude, Max complains even when he wins. Now that the fighting for wins isn't happening after 5 years of being at the front of the field, it's not shocking he does not like them, which I partly believe is due to all the Red Bull problems they're facing as well, which we're going to discuss towards the end of the episode. And again, I'm not trying to be all rose-colored glasses. Reliability is still an issue with these teams, and they have to overcome that up and down the order. But the lack of reliability at this stage shouldn't be shocking or surprising.
No.
In the last few years, it was almost a miracle to see a car suffer from a mechanical DNF at random over a weekend. Like, how many times can you really say, like, oh my God, everybody was blowing up? It did not happen for the last 3 years.
Yeah, we kind of got spoiled on that. And I want to touch on something that you said. I would venture to guess that Williams isn't going to make their car overweight going into 2027. I would venture to guess that McLaren's going to fix all these issues that they're dealing with right now, and now they're going to have a better understanding of that Mercedes power unit, unlike they do this year. 2027 is a completely different ball game, even under the same regulations, because now everybody's got it figured out. Mercedes has the 2026 year figured out. Not everybody else in 2027 did. And another year for Cadillac. I mean, I'm not saying they're going to be fighting for race wins or anything, but if they've now figured out the sport, all these guys are writing down pros and cons, right and wrongs. It's a trial and error situation. You try something, and if it doesn't work, it doesn't work. The Macarena wing for Ferrari did not work. Therefore, they retired it. They're not going to use it again. But it's a trial and error situation.
We'll never say never. I mean, maybe they'll bring it back out. We never know.
I would venture to guess that they're probably not. But either way, I think just because 2026 looks to be Mercedes' year does not mean that 2027, 2028, 2029, or 2030 will.
Yeah. And look, the last engine stuck around for a long time, by the way, and became insanely reliable. Again, I hate to say that I'm rooting for DNFs, but now there's kind of a fun randomness when you walk into a race weekend that I don't know, somebody could blow up and it throw off everybody's strategy. We don't know when it's going to happen or if it's going to happen. That's throwing a wrench into the race weekend, and teams having to make snap strategy decisions in the pits is also a portion of the sport that I feel like we've been kind of missing the last couple of years. Unless somebody completely boggled it, not to give you a hard time, but McLaren messing up in Qatar last year, right? Unless you completely mess up a strategy, at least the last few years, if you were in the front of the field, you were probably going to win. You were probably going to stay there. The engines are also going to face these super clipping issues like we saw in Australia. Certain configurations and certain circuits are not going to allow for as much energy harvesting. But I think with time, the engineers and the technicians and even the FIA, the broader body, are going to look up and down the paddock and realize how they can optimize the cars, how they can work alongside these engines, how they can carry even better speed across the entire calendar. As far as speed's concerned on the stopwatch, 2025 finished, was near record-breaking territory with how fast those ground effect cars were. This is a huge overhaul of the cars. The cars are going to be slower at the start of this regulation, much slower than they will be by the end of the regulation when they're going to be back on freaking rails again. I'm a newer fan. I've been watching the sport for, intently the way I have been for less time than some. Don't get me wrong. But even speaking to some veteran fans about this sport, the racing it's entertaining. It's fun. We're enjoying ourselves watching these races. So I don't know if you have anything else to share at this point, but like look for minor tweaks. I don't think we're going to be seeing V10s, at least for the not for the next like handful of years. I know everybody really wants those. I'd be super excited to see the V10s return. Those things sounded awesome, but don't expect them to just abandon these regulations after 2 races or 3 races. I don't think it's going to happen, guys.
Yeah. Let's give it some time.
Give it some time. Let us know what you think so far after the first 2 weekends, though. Comment below, TLPs.